part due to deficient special teams. They ranked dead last in special teams efficiency during this 10-game stretch. Things have gone sideways for them in the middle of their games. That's where it's been the trouble. They've been outscored 47-0 in the second and third quarters over the last 2 weeks and lost both of those games. And 25 has been their magic number. They're 6-0 when they score that many points, 0-7 when they don't. Amid the struggles, rumors that the team met recently with Urban Meyer were denied by Jerry Jones yesterday.
That's not correct. I can confirm that it is absolutely not correct. We have not met with any coach, not met with any. Specifically, why in answering that question, I don't want to imply that we would.
Okay, so let's try and make some sense of what he just said, because there were a lot of double negatives involved in all of that. And Laura and Paul, you both know him well. You've been sparring with Urban Meyer forever, and you actually worked with him in Florida back in the day. So I'll start with you. Could you see Urban Meyer, who will have a lot of options if he wants to go back into coaching, making this jump to the NFL and to that team?
Look, I mean, it's possible, Greeny, but I can tell you this. When Urban Meyer looks at jobs and things that he may want to do with his future, he first looks at the quarterback. We've seen this work well for him in the past when he started with Alex Smith, then Tim Tebow. And then, of course, at Ohio State, it was Braxton Miller who said, yeah, look, I'm going to go there and coach right then and take that job. He consults with a lot of people around him that would give him advice about, whether or not he wants to take this job. And I don't know that they would advise him to take it with Dak Prescott as the quarterback. I'm not taking anything away from Dak, but I think Urban Meyer wants maybe even a better quarterback if he were to go to the NFL. The thing about Urban, and you know this well, Paul, he would never want to go somewhere and fail. So he wants to go somewhere where he feels like he's going to have instant success and the best possible setup for that.
Well, Urban didn't like the president of the university telling him what to do last year. He's certainly not going to like Jerry Jones, and I don't know what Jerry Jones was talking about there, Greeny. First of all, you don't meet with coaches during the season. You have agents do that. Everyone knows that. Mm-hmm. And besides, I mean, you start thinking about the worst possible marriages in history, Angelina Jolie and Billy Bob Thornton go down the list. I mean, this would be worse. I mean, this would be the worst.
Why would this be so bad?
Because Urban Meyer and Jerry Jones would just butt heads from day one. Urban is an authoritarian figure. He runs everything. He's a detail freak, and Jerry Jones talking to the media after his first exhibition loss would drive Urban off the deep end.
Jerry Jones, it was so confusing because what he actually said was, I can confirm that didn't happen, which is a remarkable way to phrase that, one way or the other. Laura, let's take the specifics of this team out of the equation. Do you see him coaching in the NFL? Based upon what Paul just said, not only does he not like hearing it from upstairs, I don't think he likes hearing it from his players who are professionals and getting paid a lot of money. If you come to could you see him in the NFL?
Look, I think the attractive thing for him about maybe coaching in the NFL is he wouldn't have to recruit, and that does wear on coaches, especially guys that have had to do that for so many years. So I could see that happening. The other thing too, and this kind of plays into what Paul said, Greeny, he wants to be the best at everything he does. He hasn't had that foray into the NFL yet. Maybe he wants to see, just for his own whatever it is, ego, I guess you could call it, if he could succeed in the NFL.
Well, catch me up here. Is there a huge coaching opening in college that he could take now? So he's sitting out a year if he doesn't take a
The only one that was interesting was USC, and they decided to stay with Helton. That job will probably be open a year from now, so we can revisit it then.
Okay, but he asked about the quarterback there too. I mean, back to my point, if he wants to make sure he has that type of franchise, really good quarterback wherever he goes.
And there's still a health issue. Remember, he got burned out at Florida last year. I mean, his doctor talked about health issues. And if you have a headache, Jerry Jones will send you to ICU, let alone if you have serious problems.
Okay, let me take this over to the table here, because I want to bring this to the NFL guys over here. We have a bunch of stuff to get to. And Dominique, the second Laura said that, I was immediately thinking of you, because Dominique Foxworth is the president of the Dak Prescott fan club. What do you make of that?
Laura Juanita Rutledge.
Oh, no.
How? So, a better quarterback than Dak Prescott? Like, jobs in NFL don't open up often, and they rarely, if ever, open up with a good franchise quality quarterback. Dak Prescott is playing as well as anybody in the league so far this year. Well, not anybody. There's Lamar Jackson, but Dak Prescott is great. So if you're looking for a job in the NFL, I understand wanting to have a quarterback, but what other job's going to open up where there's a quarterback that's anywhere close to this?
Well, Fair. Cleveland is another job that could come open. Some people will like the
He ain't made fit.
No, I hear you. He was the number one pick in the draft, is my point. So
yeah.
some people may look at that and say, I can make him into a great quarterback. Dan Graziano, every single week I have asked you the question about the Cowboys coaching, and every single week you have said there's nothing here. Now the Urban Meyer conversation comes up specifically. What do we know?
Well, we know that if Jason Garrett doesn't make some miracle run and probably get them into the Super Bowl, that they will make a coaching change in Dallas. That's what we've been sort of reporting since training camp. So at this point, you start to see possible candidates. Now, it's not surprising to see Jerry Jones tamp this down because Garrett's still the coach, and they're still in first place. Like, they're trying to win the next 3 games and get into the playoffs. So obviously, it doesn't do anybody any good for anyone to think that he's out there meeting with coaching candidates. I think there's a sense around the Cowboys that there's some kind of big fish that Jerry has in mind, though I don't know who it would be. This would fit the description. But listening to some of the analysis over there, I do kind of agree. It doesn't seem to fit what Jerry tends to look for in a head coach.
Another big fish, of course, is Lincoln Riley. We're talking about college guys. There are a total of 3 coaches who've won championships on both the college level and the pro level. 2 of them were with Dallas, right? Jimmy Johnson, Barry Switzer, and then Pete Carroll is the other. Just the notion, RC, of a college coach, Urban Meyer, a lifelong college coach, no pro experience to my knowledge. Do you think that could work on the NFL level?
You know, I think it's very difficult for guys like Urban Meyer who are control freaks, who want to not only control what goes on in his organization, but wants to control people, because we've seen, especially in this day and age of the player, players have more voice. Players step up and say things. And when I'm getting paid $10 to $20 million a year, there are certain ways you're not going to talk and address me. Yeah. And so when you look at those things, I think it's going to be very difficult for Urban Meyer to get into this league and continue to coach the way he has in college.
Now, I want to bring one other thing into the conversation. It's unrelated to this, but it is also Cowboy related. I'm not sure how many people have seen this. In an interview yesterday on 1310 AM The Ticket, Cowboy legend Troy Aikman was asked about the idea of maybe someday joining the Cowboys front office. And his answer was interesting. This is part of what he said, quote, "I doubt it. I mean, I think it's a real long shot. I believe that it's unlikely that Jerry will ever bring somebody in that can help this football team in that regard, just because he's been real stubborn and steadfast in that he's the one in charge. I think in a lot of ways, until that changes, this team's going to have some problems." Holy smoke, Troy Aikman said that.
Yeah, he set that thing ablaze. So
hey,
I don't understand the criticism of Jerry Jones, the GM. Like, I know that we talk about some organizations across sports, from Dolan to Snyder to organizations where the owner holds them back. I don't think that's true here in Dallas. It seems like they've had a pretty strong roster. It seems very clear that at least as far as a GM in the past 5 to 6 years, Jerry Jones has
right,
done a
but you got to
solid
understand,
job.
too, it's the last 25 years, right? It's since 1995. It's only 9 playoff appearances. It's having a run where you didn't have a winning season from 2010 to 2013. And when you look at the way the NFL is set up, those GMs don't last. Right. Those coaches don't last. And it's good to have consistency, right? It's good to say, you know what? We know who our GM is. We know the type of decisions he makes. But when it's consistently mediocre, that's the problem. And no other GM would last under another owner. So Jerry Jones, the owner, should fire Jerry Jones,
Let
the
me
GM.
also spin that a different direction for you, Neek, because the job of the general manager is not only to acquire the players, but the coach. Right. And there's a lot of people who perceive Jason Garrett being the coach there this long only because he's willing to deal with Jerry Jones in ways that, as we're discussing, Urban Meyer may not. And that may be a problem unto itself.
I mean, that's why it's interesting that we keep bringing up these big fish. Like, who thinks that that's going to work? I don't think, even if they're great coaches, even if Urban Meyer is able to change his coaching style in a way that is more consistent with NFL players, I don't think that it will work well with Jerry Jones.
The biggest fish ever was a tuna, right? And that's Bill Parcells, and he was there for a short time. It didn't work. Dan Graziano, can it work?
I don't think so. I think we've talked about this on the show a lot. This is a situation where, you know, after games, Jerry Jones goes out and talks to the media, and the head coach waits to do his news conference. Yeah. Like that, those kinds of things. That sounds silly to people watching, but I mean, that most of the time that's not how it works. And I think, you know, that's an example of how it has to operate there. And if you want control, if you want to be the out front guy, the big personality, then that's probably not the coaching job for
People start to change when they're faced with their football mortality. We train a different way. We eat a different way. Jerry Jones has to be looking at his literal mortality. And he needs to understand, if he wants to win, not in his coaching GM tenure, in his lifetime, if he wants another Super Bowl, he needs to be different. And if he can make that change, then I'm sure people would love to coach the Dallas Cowboys.
I think he thinks this team should have done it. I mean, he signed Ezekiel Elliott. I think he thinks he should. I think he thinks he's a coach away right now. That might make some sense. All right, the NFL weekend.